Welcome to Unsilent with your hosts Dave and Brian. This is not another current events podcast. We are digging deeper, diagnosing, and discussing what's really going on today, how we got here, and providing observations for future generations.
Welcome to Unsilent. We're Brian and Dave. We love to hear back from you where you think we've got it right and where you think we've got it wrong. You can do that by leaving a comment on unsilentpodcast.com or Rumble or Facebook or any of the various places where we get together and talk about consequential issues. And there are, as in all weeks of late, there are many consequential issues. Brian, what strikes you as being interesting in this particular week of consequence?
Well, I should let our folks who are alive in our current era and not who we're speaking to 70 years in the future, that we are recording this episode much earlier than usual because of my travel schedule. So if Israel and Iran exchanged nuclear weapons, and we're not talking about that, that's why. So I should have brought this up last week because it was hand in hand with our conversation there. But Dave, what do you think is more important in our society, elections or the never-ending pasta pass at Olive Garden? If you had to choose only, I know it's tough. If you don't choose only one, which is most consequential, which one would you go with?
I would think that elections are probably up there as a little bit more important.
Yeah, it's a tough call, but okay. So here's a statement from Olive Garden. This is a quote from their X page.
Okay.
And it goes like this: No, period. The never-ending pasta pass is only for use by the pass holder whose name is printed on the pass. Passes are personalized and non-transferable. Pass holders must present a valid photo ID along with the pass at the time of ordering. So
well, that's
I'm gonna take the lead of this person who shared this and who said Olive Garden should run our elections. I'm gonna go ahead and second that.
Yeah, well, that would work, but then they would be accused of being a virulent racist and not supporting the poor because we can't be required to show ID before we do something important, can we?
Well, how have they not been bankrupted and hauled before the Supreme Court and Congress? And exposed for this unfair practice that they're instituting and forcing upon us, Dave.
Yes, they should have been there. We should probably organize a protest, get some pitchforks and some torches and go down there and protest because clearly they're run by virulent racists.
Well, and how unfair is it to deprive the people of whatever country, Cambodia or El Salvador, from their never-ending pasta pass? It's completely unfair.
They probably want them to starve to death. I mean, to truth be told, they want them to starve to death.
Probably so.
That's it.
Okay. In more serious, this is actually much more serious and very consequential. I find this just bewildering. And again, as you and I have talked about the fourth turning, when I was growing up, Warren G. Harding, the whatever president he was, 20th president or whatever he was it was taught to me as I was growing up, not just because of my name, but he was identified as the most corrupt president ever.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently his cabinet was doing all kinds of shady things and whatnot. And then, as the years passed, as I've grown up, the story has changed a little bit, that maybe some of those things were happening without him knowing, and maybe he wasn't really as at fault. Like, he was negligent, but not complicit is kind of how it's evolved a little bit. This is announced by several well-known and respected financial influence accounts, like Unusual Whales is a very well-known account on X and Facebook and whatever for tracking things on Wall Street.
Yeah,
both of them then this other one, Watcher dot something or other, they both report the same thing. Here's the headline: Trump media is reportedly seeking as much as $100,000 per month to provide banks and trading firms with the fastest access to President Trump's Truth Social posts, per Bloomberg. So to recap why this matters, during the first several weeks of the Iran excursion, as we've come to call it. It's not a war, it's an excursion.
Right.
Um, when he would post something on Truth Social and it would get shared, it moved the market
Yeah.
billions of dollars. Like the S&P looked like a meme stock as
Yeah.
far as how it was
Yeah.
moving.
Yep.
Based on the instant he put a post out, it would rise or fall, big time.
Right.
So the idea here, as I understand it, is, well, for $100,000 a month, Dave, you can have first crack at that information and be able to position yourself appropriately based on what the president is putting out.
That is blatantly, if that's if that's the full deal, that's a blatant violation of what's called the emoluments clause of the Constitution, that the president is not allowed to make himself rich, or or to get benefit, financial benefit from being the president. Now, in this day and age, it's not surprising because there's numerous examples. I mean, the president's stablecoin, the Qataris, are reported to be investing potentially, I don't know, billions of dollars in Trump-backed stablecoins. I mean, we've got, and the list goes on and on. I don't know why. During the first Trump administration, so this is genuinely confusing to me, Brian. During the first Trump administration, there was people on the left were freaking out that people would come from foreign countries and would stay at one of the Trump hotels in D.C. as a gross violation of the emoluments clause. That was and I was like, come on, that's stupid. I mean, when you think the president gives a rip if somebody's paying $300 a night to stay in a Washington D.C. hotel, he's going to personally make 1/100th of 1 cent on? Who gives a rip about that? So I was just like, yeah, you shut up with the emoluments clause. This stuff, like what you just mentioned, and a number of other very similar things, strike me as completely and blatantly violations of the emoluments clause, which is reason for criminal investigation. I don't understand it. I don't understand, where's the left on this. I haven't heard about this. Where are they?
That is Mike. Okay, so one of these, I saved both of them because one of them is citing Bloomberg and the other one is citing FT, which I think means Financial Times. I'm guessing that's what means
No,
Financial Times, right?
FT is very credible. Yes.
Yeah, Bloomberg pretty credible, Financial Times pretty credible. These
Yeah.
accounts that shared it also not substantially, that not to the substance of those, but they're well known for sure, and they're involved. Separate from the thing about the personal enrichment, there's got to be something to this. You get access. So forget if you got it for just because you know the guy or because you're paying $100,000 a month. Separate that out. There seems something fundamentally wrong to me about you get this insider information. Like this is insider trading by definition, in my opinion. Even if it's only by 3 minutes or 7 minutes, it's still insider trading. And first of all, the balls to say this, it's just, what? And this Trump media reportedly saying this again, as it's reported, both of them say the same thing. So there's the clause you're mentioning, there's the insider trading part, and then the obvious question: they were going after this guy for paying the what was her name, the hooker or the stripper or whatever, what's her name,
Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels. They were going after him for paying her off from the wrong account.
Campaign funds,
and a fairly
yeah,
insignificant, relative to this, in my opinion, insignificant violation of the law. They were going to hang the guy for that. And I have yet to hear a politician on the left even mention this. And my question, of course, is, well, why not?
Why? Yeah.
And the only conclusion I can come to is, well,
they're doing the same
maybe
thing.
They're making some coin too.
They're doing the same thing. Yeah, they're doing the same thing. I mean, we've heard about, the fact that many people in Washington, D.C. have gotten incredibly rich, coincidentally, during the time that they're in D.C. I mean, so there's been just a bunch of that happens, which on the surface of it, at the salary levels that you get for being a senator or congressman or any of that, make no sense at all. So they sell books. Okay, well, yeah, but then that it just makes no sense at all. So the that's the only conclusion that I can draw to, is that it's the apple cart that they're all pulling apples from. And so they can't say anything to Trump because they're doing the same thing. Elizabeth Warren's doing the same thing. And so are the rest of them, which is,
Yeah. Uh, along those lines, you're talking about how many people are getting wealthy. This is also from Unusual Whales, completely different a thing here. They're citing the Wall Street Journal. A record 556,850 people worldwide now have a net worth exceeding $30 million, up 14.4% in 2025 alone,
hmm,
marking the fastest growth since 27. So there's this very small number,
yeah,
556,000 people, round up to 557,000 people in
yeah,
the world with a net worth over $30 million. I haven't done the math to figure out what percentage of the population that is, but there's 8.5 billion people in the
yeah,
planet. So, um, a pretty small percentage have that. And this is the part that, like, okay, you see this level of what I'm going to call it corruption, which is
sure,
why I saved both the Financial Times and the
yeah,
Bloomberg thing. Like, these are well-known institutions.
yep,
I'm just going to flat out call this like fraud and
yeah.
corruption,
It's corruption.
insider trading, all the things we say we don't allow
Yeah,
simultaneously. Maybe it's coincidence. I don't know. Maybe these people just work really hard. What do I know? Simultaneously, the largest increase in years of 14.4% in 2025 alone of people who are worth more than $30 million. And this is the part that gets me to go, when we were talking last week about they want to tear the system down. This is the stuff that I go, I get why they want to do that. I
sure,
completely
yeah,
disagree with their methodology to
yeah,
resolve it.
yeah,
Completely disagree with how to fix it.
yeah.
But I completely understand why they're like, screw it, burn the whole thing down.
Sure, I can too. I mean, when you look at when you look inside the details of, like, the another good example of this, of rules being completely changed to benefit one person. I'm generally a fan of Elon Musk because the man is brilliant. He came here from South Africa, built himself an incredible, empire. But the IPO for SpaceX is just built on smoke and mirrors and violates rule after rule after rule of the way these things are supposed to be done. I mean, so
Yeah.
they went, normally, the way, without getting too arcane about this, normally you have a certain way that you price out what you're going to sell an IPO for, and it has some basis on of the profitability or the revenues of the company that's going public. Well, Google went public at something like, 8 times or 10 times, don't quote me on that, of their revenue when they went public. SpaceX went to market at like 100 times their revenue,
Yeah.
and considering the what they call the net addressable market, considering everything in the world as possible SpaceX revenue. Everything in the world as possible SpaceX revenue. I mean, this is such an incredible violation, so incredibly out there, that, so why doesn't anybody, well, a lot of people notice this, a lot of people see it, but they just kind of throw up their hands and say, well, the rich going to do the rich. And
Yeah.
I am, I am simultaneously two things. I am simultaneously very concerned about income inequality because of these things. Because of these things. I'm not
Yeah.
concerned about income inequality where people have legitimately earned the difference between, what I make and what they make. I'm not concerned about that. I'm not willing to work as hard. I'm not as smart as other people who become much richer than I am. Fine, fine. I am concerned about any income inequality when you've got fortunes like the first trillionaire built on smoke and mirrors that have
Yeah.
no basis in reality. And even more concerning to me, Brian, is that it's out there in the open. It's not even hidden. And you've got the Federal Reserve, the same thing, Federal Reserve and the government owning shares of companies. They're not allowed to do that. That's not
Yeah.
legal. They can't do it.
Yeah.
They do it. So yeah,
My understanding is they changed the rules for the how quickly companies can get added. I think it's the Nasdaq composite
yes,
that SpaceX was added to. They changed the rules so it could be added within like 2 weeks or something like that of the
it doesn't
IPO.
happen. That's another one that doesn't happen, and it did. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here on the. Yeah, I fully agree with all those things you're saying. I can't wrap my head around the stones to like even say this. Like
Yeah,
I imagine this kind of thing happens regularly behind closed doors. I get that
sure.
part. I
Yeah,
can't imagine how it wouldn't happen somewhere in the world like this, where
sure.
this is just how wealthy people operate at at that level, when there's no oversight and things like that. What what plausible defense could there be for like selling the president's tweets essentially, for insider information? I it's the wildest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, the only defense is nobody cares. Nobody's going to do anything about it. That's the only defense. It is literally Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
yeah, I mean, it's that same philosophy of, yeah, sure, yeah, all that, yeah, it's true. So who cares? Nobody's going to do anything about it. And
Yeah.
when and that is the point, to your point earlier, that is the point where you can say, as a person that is struggling to meet your mortgage, is struggling to meet your rent, is concerned that it's going to cost you $6 to a gallon to fill up at the gas station, and that if you want to go to McDonald's, it's going to cost you $20 to get a burger and fries and a Coke. I mean, yeah, that's when I can empathize with that kind of, well, it's just not fair. It's just not right.
Even the example you just gave, it's $20 to go to McDonald's and get your burger and fries and soft drink, which is 3x what it was,
Yeah.
I don't know, a handful of years ago. If you're struggling there, now there's some billionaire who says, "Hey, you can't afford the $20. I got a buy now, pay later solution for you, where I'm going to charge you 35% interest."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, everywhere you turn is like this is happening. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's it.
Well,
And it,
and then you get to the point this is, we've been at the point of institutional, where the trust in institutions has shrunk a ton, collapsed a ton. But then you get to the point where normal people stop caring a bunch about, paying their taxes on time or paying their
yep.
taxes at all. I mean, I'll admit this on nationwide podcast. I went down and I might have actually mentioned this before. I went down to the licensing place. I was going to renew my tabs and we have a truck that we use for hauling hay around. And I went down and I said, "Oh, I got to renew this." And they said, "Oh, you've been driving without tabs for a year and a half." And I said, "I have." Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't notice. And they said, "Well, don't worry about it. And, another 6 months and then renew them. There's no sense in doing it now because, nobody's going to care." So I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So I drove around for another 6 months with expired tabs. Nobody cares. I mean, so just a little tiny minor itty bitty thing. But when I was growing up, or even 10 years ago, I would have been horrified. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my tabs expired tomorrow. I got to get down to the licensing place and get my tabs replaced." Now it's like, nobody really even cares. So it's like,
Well, in the state of Washington, they passed a law last year, the year before, where the police can't stop you just for
yeah,
tabs being expired.
yeah,
So
exactly. So
unless
it's
you commit some other
effectively,
crime, they don't care either.
yeah, it's effectively legal. Yeah, exactly. Crazy. It's crazy.
All right. Well, that's what do you got this week? That was I'm still just astounded by that. But anyhow, enough about that. That it's just gonna make me mad. What do you got?
Well, of course, this week we didn't talk last week about the status of the war. The status of the war is back on in Iran, 169, I think, maybe something
Yeah,
like.
I didn't pay attention to the news, but I'm assuming we won several more times.
Yeah, a few more times. Yeah, we were amazingly victorious. I got to thinking about this, and I got to thinking about how, this it's like, just even now, it's such a joke. I mean, so much of this is such a joke. And really, what is so if KDG is going to evaluate the last 80-year period, so the set of first through fourth turnings that we've just been through, one of the things that is important, I think, to recognize, and this one really points it out as much as anything else, and that is the nature of war. And the fact is that if you ask anybody objectively, and for the last 80 years, since World War II, we really haven't won any wars. I mean, we've had
No.
some conflicts that we've done okay in,
Well,
and
I think we can
Grenada,
take the encounter in Grenada as a victory.
Grenada, yeah, we kind of won Grenada, but 98% of Americans can't even identify Grenada.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure it counts too
But
much.
all the others, I would say, yeah, we've got our ass handed to us multiple times.
And And why is that? And why is it that now, once again, we are back at it? We're bombing him, all this kind of stuff. And I've come to the conclusion that the reason it's just, I do a lot of reading. It's not just me that's come to this conclusion, but the reason is because we've for the last 80 years, since World War II, we have denied the fundamental nature of war. We tried to treat war as something that it's not. Now, so as a basic idea of history and philosophy, you can look at war and understand what it is. What war really is two sides against each other, and you kill each other until no one side can't kill the other side anymore, and they're done, and they surrender, and they're
Right.
over with. The way that we're treating this war that we're in right now, and the way that we treated Vietnam, and the way that we treated just about every other war, is we violated the fundamental nature of war. We've talked on this podcast many times about how reality always wins. Reality, and there's a reality to war. And the reality to war is that if you don't go in with the idea of completely annihilating the people that you're fighting against, then you're going to fail. We didn't do that in Vietnam. We didn't do that in Korea. We're not doing it now. What we did is we did it in incremental steps. We'll go a little bit further. They'll go a little bit further. We'll kind of do this incrementalism. It completely fails. We denied the fundamental nature of war. We could have won in Vietnam. We could have won in Korea. We could have obliterated them both if we decided to. Now, the other thing is you say, okay, well, what about Afghanistan? What about Iraq? Again, we denied the fundamental nature of war. We didn't go into Afghanistan to obliterate the enemy, say, you're done, surrender at gunpoint, and then they surrender and they say, okay, good, now we're out of here. You rebuild your lives, and if we can help, we'll help. No, we tried to create a nation out of it. We tried to create a Western nation out of it. We tried to do that in Iraq. We tried to create a West. We denied the fundamental nature of war. The problem is we're doing the exact same thing right now once again. Instead of Now, we shouldn't have started this thing in the first place. There's just no question. This was a stupid
Agreed.
thing for us to start because
Yep.
they've got so many advantages. They can't win a war against us, but they can, as we've talked about before, they can just survive and survive and survive. The only way, but we're at the point right now where we're stuck. So what's going to happen next? We had this, we bantered back and forth about this last week. What are we going to do? We don't have any options. We don't have any options. We're not going to send in ground troops. I mean, so that's, we don't have, we've lost, sadly, I think 3 Americans, just heartbreaking,
Yeah.
soldiers. We've lost them. They've died. I mean, so that's heartbreaking. But if we were to treat it successfully, if we were to treat it, the only way we should treat it right now, the only way we can treat it right now to have any level, any possibility of, well, there's only 2 things we can do. We can either give up and leave. That's one option. We could do that. That might be a good option. The other option we could do is, without invading, go all in. Go all in. Now, the problem with going all in without invading is that a lot of people will be mad at us. Now, if you're going to go to war, then you blow up bridges, you blow up everything. You just blow it up. That's how war works. If you're going to go to war, you go to war. If you don't go to war, you're going to lose. If you don't operate that way, you're going to lose. And so the problem is, right now, we're either going to be stuck there for years, for this president and whoever the next president is, we're going to be stuck, because that region of the world, for probably 7 more years, is going to be critical for the energy infrastructure of planet Earth. It's critical. So we can't not. I mean, why have we been involved in the Middle East since World War II? Because of oil, because of freaking oil, because, and we had this, we had our economy handed to us for the entire 10 years. The economy in the 70s by OPEC said, yeah, we don't like you very much. We're just going to jack your inflation way up. And so, we're just a nightmare. So the problem is, until leaders, and I suspect that this next set of 4 turnings that we're going into is going to be punctuated much more significantly by real wars than maybe we've been this last go around. And that is just heartbreaking and sad, because nobody wants that. But I think that's where we have ended ourselves. But that's where we're at right now. We either leave or we go all in, and I don't know if we're going to do either one.
Yeah. Well, like when you said go all in except for not send ground troops, I would argue that's going about 70% in. That's not going
Well, it's
100% in,
true. It's
right?
true. Now, if
Yeah,
we were to truly go all in, we would send in ground troops. That's true. There's no doubt.
right.
Just that the public won't support that.
Right. So I was just gonna say, let's do a quick root cause
Yeah.
analysis on why that is. And one of my favorite tools for root cause analysis is the five whys. If you don't know what that is,
Yeah.
Google five whys Washington Monument. There's a fantastic illustration of there. But you just keep asking why is that, right? So we didn't win those wars, I would argue, in every one of those cases, from Korea to Vietnam to
Right.
Afghanistan, Iraq, all on and on and on. Why did we not win? We had the potential, we could have, they had the capabilities to win. Why
Yeah.
didn't we? Because we didn't go all in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's first one. Why didn't we go all in? Because the public didn't support it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Why didn't the public support it? Because whatever the aims the politicians had were not worth my son dying or my nephew dying or my
Yeah.
husband dying.
Yeah.
And so when you get down to it, the aims of the politicians did not align with the aims of the population, the
Right.
citizens,
Yeah.
and they were trying to do what they wanted and quote unquote win, but not go all in because they would have been voted out of office
Yeah.
or prosecuted or whatever else. And so this is, in my opinion, this is a manifestation of the politicians trying to get what they want with the
Yeah.
going as far as they can without risking their livelihood or freedom or whatever, because they knew deep down this is not what we wanted. So in
Right.
my opinion, the reason we've lost all these wars is because they're acting not in alignment with how our population wants us
Yeah.
to interact in the world.
Well, there's a fundamental arrogance to it. The fundamental arrogance is that it's the same fundamental arrogance that exists with the Great Society programs, that we think we can solve poverty because we're so powerful. It's Victor syndrome, basically. So we won World War II, so we think we can do anything in the world. We think we can
Yeah.
solve. We can solve poverty and eliminate it in our lifetime. LBJ. We think we can engage any place in the world and cause whatever change we want in the world. Now, you could make an argument that there's two things that the politicians didn't do right in Korea and Vietnam, and one of them is they were arrogant. They were fundamentally arrogant because they thought they could do this kind of thing. They could have their cake and eat it too. Have the
Yeah.
public not be too mad at them and still achieve the objective. Now you could look at the world under in Vietnam and Korea and say that there was good reasons to fight those wars. You could make a historically valid case for that. You could also make a historically valid case that we shouldn't have done that, but you could make a
Right.
case for those were worthwhile things to do because we needed to stop the Soviet Union in particular from gaining too much power, and ultimately we won in the 1990s. So you could say but in that case, if that was the case, then the smart leader would have continued to pitch and rally the country around, here is why we're doing this. If we don't do this, the Soviet Union, who has killed tens of millions of people by that time, by the 50s and 60s, is going to kill hundreds of millions of people, and therefore it is a fight. Just trot out MacArthur. It's a fight for our very lives, not the way they pitched it and the way they sold it. They thought they could have their cake and eat it too. That's arrogance on the part of the politicians. And as with a lot of things, multiple things can be true at once. You could
Yeah.
say that there are certain things that are in our very best interest to go after Iran or to go after Venezuela, at the same time that if you don't do it right, and if you deny the way the public works, and if you deny the way that the universe works, and if you deny the laws of war, you are going to fail. I don't care if you're, President Trump. I don't care if you're President Reagan or if you're George Bush or Barack Obama or whoever it happens to be. And that's where I think the lessons of history need to be, in probably hundreds of years from now, will be written about. Maybe they won't come to these conclusions, but I think they'll probably come to some of these conclusions we're talking about right now, that it was the arrogance and the belief that, we have done great in the British Empire. At the height of the British Empire, they had these bar songs where they sang, "We have done great things and greater things yet we will do," and God is, manifest destiny. God's going to lead us into this great future, and now it's a small island nation that can't even take care of its own citizens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I agree. I guess the way I would look at it is I fully agree with the arrogance part. And I kind of liken it to they were so arrogant to think that our 50% effort was enough to beat their 100%
yeah,
effort,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the reason we were only willing to give 50% effort is because the public really didn't want what they were trying to do.
yeah,
And those are the two things happening at once. I kind of
exactly.
liken it to like the Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year. Imagine an NFL team going to the Super Bowl and saying, "We are so good. We're going to go ahead and not play our starting quarterback,
Yeah,
our starting center, our starting two cornerbacks, and our point after our kickoff guy. We're gonna go ahead and have our third string guys start in those positions because to demonstrate that we are so good even without these critical roles. We can, I guess,
right.
it's lunacy. You wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah, it's arrogance, and it's self-aggrandizement, and I think part of that is the fact that, like, to our previous segment, we were just talking about how they're getting away with these insane things. I think there's a belief in Washington D.C. and the ethos around our nation's powerful, like Elon Musk and others, that, again, and I'm not an Elon Musk detractor. I don't hate President Trump. I'm not I don't have Trump derangement syndrome either. There's plenty of things I'm not in favor of what he's doing too, but I kind of, in my opinion, call balls and strikes. But all of these folks, I think they're infected with this level of success and this level of belief that they can do anything that they want to, and it's going to be successful. And that, there's a biblical phrase, pride cometh before a fall. It's
Yeah.
the arrogance of the arrogance of the haughty is a deadly sin, as the scripture says. So, I think that these are the things that get us into trouble and put us in untenable situations, which is, back to the original point here, which is where we're at right now with Iran. We're in an untenable situation. We've got the Houthis that are, Iran is attacking all their neighbors. I mean, they're attacking everybody. They're attacking Jordan and Oman. They're attacking everybody. And now the Houthis say they're getting involved. And, the only way that the United States, I mean, we could either exit, which would force the hand of the rest of the world, which it's not a bad idea. Maybe, I mean, nobody will trust us for 50 years. So there's that, and that's a bit of a problem. Or we're going to have to do something dramatic. My thinking right now is we're going to have to do something dramatic. Either we're going to have to do, take the gloves off and go all in on the air campaign, just take the entire, coast of Yemen and reduce it to dust with, sortie after sortie of F-35s and B-2s and everything. We're going to have to reduce it to dust, and we're going to have to reduce the coast of Iran to dust. We're just going to have to go all in, use all our munitions. Hopefully, we can produce enough to fend off wars in other places in the world. Or we're going to have to exit and get the entire world mad at us and let Europe handle it. So one of those two things is going to have to happen. Otherwise, we're just going to keep fiddling around for years in this place.
Well, if I'm China, I'm certainly hoping we go for option A, where we
Yeah.
expend our entire munitions
Yep.
on this little
Yep.
excursion.
Yep.
Um,
So they can
and
take Taiwan.
based on the reporting I've seen, we cannot produce these things as fast as we're
Yeah.
expending them.
Yep.
We've spent somewhere north of $300 billion so far doing this.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I honestly, short of something out of some unknown wrinkle being revealed,
Yeah.
I don't know what they do. I honestly
Yeah.
don't like every option they have is not awesome in any
Yeah.
way.
Well, and my hope is that someplace somewhere, maybe, Zelensky just fired his young defense chief that everybody loved over there because he's like a YouTube star apparently in Ukraine, who's the guy that's behind the drone a warfare thing. My hope is that we recruited the guy and that we took him and he's building drones for us. Because I mean, you've got Russia who's producing. Their goal is their stated goal. Maybe they're doing it is to produce like 1,000 Shahed drones like every month, 1,000 of the things. And say what you will about Russia, it's a manufacturing powerhouse.
Yeah.
They know how to do a few things. They know how to dye, they know how to drink vodka, and they know how to produce munitions. I mean, so they and so that whole scenario there is a powder keg. And if we keep getting hamstrung, full disclosure, I own some stock in Lockheed Martin, the largest defense contractor in the world, but I am not part of the defense industrial complex. I wish I was, because then I'd have a lot more
Well,
money.
you're probably on the board with all the stock
I,
you have.
I wish I was a big shareholder. I have a few shares. I don't have that many. But the challenge we have is, again, back to the theory of war. We are stuck in war fighting in big. Who was it? Oh, it was it's one of the founders of Google who's formed a defense company. Was it? It's not Sergey Brin, somebody else. But I listened to a speech that they gave about the changing nature of warfare and how we are currently addicted to big, exquisite weapons like the
Yeah.
F-35, like Patriot missiles,
Yeah.
like
Aircraft carriers.
aircraft carriers, and the future is robotics and micro drones and small drones and all this. My hope is that somebody someplace knows this so that we can, within a few years, be producing gobs of this stuff. Because if not, if my prediction of this next, set of four turnings is that it's punctuated by a lot more warfare, a lot more violence than the last 80 years then we're gonna need that if we're gonna survive. Because I look at history, and who was I don't think it was US, maybe it was, I don't know who I was talking about. I was talking to somebody a while back about how comfortable, or not comfortable, but how normal war and death and violence was to our ancestors. It was just, what's for dinner? Oh, who died today? Oh, the neighbor died, and I mean, it was just warfare and violence and all that. It was just part of how
Well, they
life.
had seasons. They had their farming season, and then when they were not in the
Their
farming
wars.
season, they had their war season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been reading the Old Testament recently, and in fact, I just read in First Chronicles, it was springtime, this time the kings go out to war. It's just what you did. It's like, we're going to have an IPO, we're going to go out to war. I haven't decided who to go to war yet, but it's wartime. We got to go out to war. It's like this is the way that human beings are, if not meant to behave. This is the way that we do behave, and we have behaved, and we've gotten so comfortable and so rich and so powerful that we believe that the rules don't apply to us. And that's why we've ended up in this spot that we're in. This is why we've ended up with Queers for Palestine, where we deny the realities of the rest of the world and say that what we have here, we could just do any place that we want to, regardless
Yeah.
of the fact that they would just kill all of them.
Yeah, we're gonna go over and put democracy in Iraq and Afghanistan,
Right.
where they have thousands of years of their tribal system that they like very much, and we may not like it, but they seem to like it. So what business is it of ours to tell them that you can't have your tribal culture? You need to adopt
Right.
our elected democracy. The hubris and the
Yeah.
arrogance and the narcissism,
Hubris.
and just like just fix your own stuff and then worry about the rest of the you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I have like simultaneous hope and fear. The hope is that at least as much I guess you would call it benefit
Yeah.
of the new drone technology and all this stuff. I hope that at least as much of that we're going to get, which we're not going to help. We're going to get that whether I like it or not. So that's baked in. I hope that they learn to stop doing this. And then simultaneously, my fear is the only way they learn to stop doing this is the costs and the consequences are just
Yeah.
unimaginable.
Yeah. I think that's true. And I think that's been true of a lot of technologies. I mean, a lot of our technologies have come from war and space travel. And a lot of our greatest learnings have come because of getting such bloody noses in various places. That's the human. That's again human nature. And we've had, I'm reading a good historian and predictor of the future that I read is Peter Zian, and he's written a number of books. Very very smart guy, very good historian. And basically his premise is that the last 80 years, if we're going to look at it maybe 1,000 years from now, will be a unique period of peace and prosperity and harmony on planet Earth that didn't happen before and probably isn't going to be repeated very similarly again, if not for a very long time. And
Yeah.
that's a shame because we tend to have this, we talk about the turnings, and there is kind of like a cyclical thing, a season, and a lot of American philosophy is, I believe there's something to it, is progressivism, and not progressivism as in terms of left-right progressivism, but that society generally progresses and gets better and better and better. And to a certain extent, that's true. In a number of ways, it is true. It's true, in terms of medical technology, in terms of life expectancy, and other things of that nature. But so we have to, like for the turnings, we have to overlay those two things on top of each other to get a good sense of what's coming next, because there is the cyclical nature at the same time that through the cyclical nature there is this progress that occurs as well. So life
Yeah.
expectancy, child mortality, those types of things.
A few minutes ago, you were talking about what they could have done was, they want to do the thing in Afghanistan or they want to do the thing in Vietnam or whatever, go on a campaign to explain to the people why we want to do this. And again, the cynical part of me is like, okay, well, why wouldn't they do that? So let's do a root cause analysis on that. Why wouldn't they do that? Well, if you're going to go out and like say, hey, here's what I think we should do, the obvious reaction is going to be somebody's going to have some questions. They're like, well, what about this? And have you considered that? And how are we going to go about this? And they're going to ask those questions, and you don't want to answer those questions. There's certain questions you don't want to answer. Well,
Right.
why wouldn't you want to answer those questions? Well, like Vietnam, for example, what was the adjacent country we were not supposed to be in, but we really were in?
Oh,
Um,
Cambodia.
Laos or
Wow.
Cambodia. Yeah,
Well, both of them
yeah,
actually.
both of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you went and made your case that hey, we got to go do this stuff, somebody somewhere might have said, hey, I heard a rumor that we're doing some stuff in Cambodia and Laos. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah.
And you don't want to answer that question because the CIA had, the SOG group over doing things there that are either against the law or not approved by
Yeah.
Congress or
Exactly.
whatever. Then you open up that whole can of worms. Like, so you can't do that, Dave.
Yeah.
You can't go out on your campaign because you're gonna get obviously people are gonna ask questions about things that you're bringing up,
Yeah.
and all this stuff leads to they're trying to accomplish things that people don't want.
Right.
All this stuff leads to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the founders had a great framework. Now we don't have that framework now because we have this fourth arm of the government that has zero oversight
Right.
and argue, in my opinion, like is a critical part of why we're like going down this path of doing things that the people don't want. Like this,
Sure.
this is the opposite of what we were trying to build 250 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but here we are, and like you say, reality always wins. The
Yep.
reality is, people in power will do as much as they can without getting caught until they get caught. That's just
Yep.
the way it works.
Exactly right. Yep. Exactly right.
So you presented the two options. One is we punt and get out of Iran as fast as we can. The second
Yep.
one is we go all in short of a ground invasion.
Yes.
What do you think they're going to do?
Well, I with Trump, you just don't know. I mean, on one hand, he's really down on Europe. I mean, from what I understand, he's, we haven't, we're not ditching NATO, and it seems like all of that bluster around NATO is just to try and get them to pony up their fair share. But Trump's impetuous enough, so it might be he just like exits the thing. So now the I think if he thinks he's not going to get, I think if he thought he would lose the Senate, then he would just exit. I don't think he thinks he's going to lose the Senate, and I don't think he actually will lose the Senate. I think he'll lose the House, but not the Senate. Who knows? I could be wrong. And so, under those circumstances, I wouldn't be surprised if they did start, bombing bombing Karg Island, bombing, they're talking about the potential of, what is it, Pickaxe Mountain, which is insane because it's deeper than the previous place. They can't bomb that.
Like
Uh,
600 meters deep or something like that, or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
to at least the public's knowledge, and we don't have anything. Even the Moabs, the mother of all bombs, can't penetrate that far. You can only get that far with a nuclear weapon, and we're not going to do that. Um, but here's the other interesting component of this. So we talk about Israel from time to time. You notice who hasn't been attacked. Israel hasn't been attacked. They've been left. Iran has left Israel alone for the better part of a month. They're attacking all the Arab countries, but they're not attacking Israel. So that plays into this whole thing as well, which tells me that they know that if they attack Israel, so this is what I think is going to happen. They know that if they attack Israel, Trump can't restrain Israel. He tries, but he can't. They're going to go all in, and they're going to really do serious damage. The
Yeah,
Israelis.
they'll use those weapons that they don't admit to having.
Well, I don't think they'll do the David option, but I think they will go all in short of the David option. They will, which then says that they are indeed concerned about a certain level of kinetic damage. Because if they weren't concerned about a certain level of kinetic damage, they wouldn't be attacking the weakest players in the region. They'd be attacking the strongest player, but they're not. They haven't been doing it for a while now. So that means to me that we might have actually done more damage to them than maybe we know about. And
Yeah,
therefore, and of course, I mean, Trump knows. He's Hegseth knows. They all know. They know more than I do. So that says to me that if Trump doesn't think he's going to lose the Senate, because if he loses the Senate, he'll be in jail. End of
oh
story.
yeah,
He
yeah,
impeached,
yeah,
he'll be in jail. They'll haul him
yeah,
up,
yeah, for sure.
perp
Yep,
walk him. And
yep,
so if he doesn't think that's going to happen, then I think he will escalate the air campaign, and he will do it with the attempt to bring them economically finally to their knees. So,
yeah.
and the linchpin in my entire argument there is the fact that they've been leaving Israel alone for I can't think of any other reason that they would leave them alone for this period of time. They've
I
never done that
I
before.
I have a reason. I think what your case you're making is certainly plausible. It could be fear based that they don't want to poke if they perceive Israel as the bear, they don't want to poke the bear.
Yeah.
You can make a plausible case for that for sure. I tend to lean more towards the strategy of demonstrating to those Arab nations that we are um, impotent to protect them
Hmm.
and getting them to sever their relationships with us individually, not collectively.
Sure.
But if you pluck off, I mean, imagine if they plucked off Jordan and
Yeah.
Jordan
Oh, Jordan
was to disassociate with us, the relationship we've had. I mean, that I don't know if that would be maybe Saudi Arabia would be a bigger get for them or whatever, but Jordan would be a
Yeah,
pretty big deal
it would.
if they could peel off one or two or three of those to individually, not
Yeah.
collectively, say, you know what, United States gone down a bad path. They're putting our people in peril. They're not stepping up to defend us from this thing they started,
Right.
and they would have a good case for that, by the way.
Of course. Yes,
Um,
it's true.
if they could somehow pull that off,
Hmm.
that is a victory that you couldn't buy the
Yeah.
munitions to get that kind of victory and like
Yeah.
disassemble that unity we have. So I lean more towards its strategy. Again, I'm not saying that the case you're making is not plausible. It
Yeah.
certainly is.
Well, to
Um,
your point, something that's interesting to your point, though, that just happened today that actually reinforces, well, I guess it reinforces both, but the president just made a deal with Saudi Arabia around nuclear. You saw that? So he made, and now it's ostensibly around commercial nuclear, not around nuclear weapons. But you get centrifuges. Who's to say you don't peel a few of them off and start spinning up to 90%?
yeah, yeah, of course.
So, and they have the only reason they haven't done that because they haven't won a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. But
And they haven't had to for the last 30 years because we were there
yeah,
to protect them. We're
exactly, exactly,
demonstrating we can't really protect them,
right, right, right,
or we're not
exactly.
willing to. One of the
Yeah,
two.
yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, that's I think that is another indication of Trump trying to keep the sort of that Arab coalition together. Because you're right, if they start dropping off, if and there's some of them that are more friendly with, I mean, we think of, I mean, Pakistan is not really in the Middle East. It's kind of north, but it's still kind of in the cadre of Islamic countries. And the leader of Pakistan attended the Ayatollah's memorial service. So there is that kind of, they they are with us because for power purposes, and if they cannot depend on our power or the Israelis' power, if they can't depend on those two things power wise, then yeah, they will peel off, and here we go back to 1960s again.
Yeah. Well, no matter what, I mean, they painted themselves into a devastating corner
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
there's no, I can't foresee a good option.
yeah,
Maybe something will happen. The price of oil hits $200 a barrel and everybody caves because everybody's economy is going to tank and we have no choice but to like get
yeah.
along for a couple of years so we crawl our way out of whatever depression
Right.
we would be in because the global economy tanks
Yeah.
from these, ongoing, arguably unnecessary
Yeah,
things.
totally
You
unnecessary.
know, I still have a hard, and every time I'll just be fully transparent. When Trump was running, I was sincerely hopeful that he was the outsider who would drain the swamp. I was
Yeah.
sincerely
Oh,
hopeful.
yeah.
And I have less than 3% confidence that that's even on the table anymore. I think he's
Yeah.
completely bailed on the things that made me hopeful. Again,
Yeah.
I don't want to go have a beer with the guy, but he was the outsider. He had the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the president. Like, okay, if we ever had an opportunity, this was it. That's kind of what I was thinking and hoping for, demonstrating that whatever forces have derailed his agenda are more powerful than the president of the United States. So I'm kind of not so hopeful anymore.
Right.
Um, but every time I hear him say we got these three service members died, to keep Iran from having a nuclear bomb, I just want to hurt him. I want to like just stop
Yeah.
this nonsense. Like
Right.
stop. Just admit you failed, admit you screwed up and get out of there.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to like endure that I was talking. I don't mean like
Yeah.
I want to hurt him like I'm gonna go like do something. I don't mean like that. Just
Service.
if he was standing in front of me, I would have to restrain myself from like,
Right.
like slapping him or something like that.
Right.
It's just lunacy. Like
Yeah.
stop it. Like
Yeah.
you overplayed your hand. Admit it. Like
Well,
fold before you lose your entire bankroll.
and what's interesting to me is that yeah, there is no question he's so overplayed his hand, so overplayed it, and yet I have to discipline myself not to talk to some of these people because sometimes I'll make comments on social media about well this thing he said is just stupid and it's just it makes no sense. And there are some people, oh no, it's 5D chess, Dave. It's 5D. Just recently, it's oh no, he's been stringing him along this whole time. Like what are you on crack? What is it? I just don't. So there's that group, that Fifth Avenue group. He said he could go out on Fifth Avenue and kill somebody. They'd still support him. There still is that whole thing. I mean, I'm not a never Trumper. I'm not. I've never been one side or the other. I've been hopeful. I voted for him twice. But yeah, it's just a strange time. It's a strange time.
Well, what seems to be shaping up to me is you have a bunch of people acting like toddlers, but the stakes are literally
Life and death. Yeah.
not far from any humanity if things go awry. I mean, the
Yeah.
stakes, like, I don't know how they could be higher. And
Yeah.
I'm not being hyperbolic. I literally mean that. I
Yeah.
don't know how the stakes could be higher with the technology we have and the weapons and
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, the people who are doing this dance with those stakes at risk are acting like toddlers. And
Yeah.
it's the most bizarre. I as a person growing up, I always thought that the people in charge were smart.
Well, I
it's
thought they were
it's kind of
serious.
sad.
No, well, you're right. See, this is the thing. I think one of the parts that I have a problem with is that it seems like so many of them are unserious people. They're not
Yeah,
serious. The things, whenever the president says, what you just said, well, they died for this. That's not a serious comment.
yeah.
That's not a mature comment. It's a toddler comment. And so I don't mind if my elected leaders and the politicians and stuff are wrong. I don't mind if they make a
Right.
mistake. I'm okay
They're
with
human.
it. I just
Yeah.
want them to be serious people and say, yeah, we tried this and we thought this was a great idea and it didn't work out like we thought. And here's what we're going to do to fix it. Just like we would do in business. What we do,
Right.
I go to a client business and I tell them I'm not going to do everything right all the time, but I'm going to be straight with you when I don't, and then I'm going to fix it. That's what I want my politicians to do. I want them to just be straight with me and say, here's what we're going to do. Here's why it makes it. I do want them to sell me on it. I do want them to treat me like an adult and say, well, here's the reasons we're going to be doing A, B, and C, and D, not some kind of BS blowing smoke kind of thing, which is what you get from sides of the aisle right now. You get, the Smithsonian Institution, like we talked about last week. But, I do want them to be at least serious enough and know that I'm a serious person and treat the whole situation that way.
I would want them to treat me at least as well as a financial planner who has my retirement funds at their disposal.
Yes, which they do. Yes, exactly.
Be honest with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to take risks. Sometimes it's going to play out, sometimes it's not. I get it.
Yep.
Okay. But be honest with me, be forthcoming with me, have my best interest at heart.
Right.
Again, we're talking about like a single person's financial, retirement nest egg is a drop in the bucket compared to the stakes that we have to at least give us that kind of commitment to treat us at least as well as somebody who is managing your $150,000 401k or whatever.
Exactly. Totally. Yep, exactly. I think we're not going to get that, however, Brian. I think we're
no. So we have this awesome combination, the perfect storm of immaturity and tremendously high stakes. So that's the world we live in right now. It's simultaneously absurd and scary.
But the Catholics are going to save us. I did read over the weekend. I read the vice president's. Vice president's most recent book called Communion. I really enjoyed it. I didn't, it wasn't earth shattering or something. It wasn't the writing was fine, but wasn't, But there's a strong. There's a strong sort of resurgence of Catholic integralism. Maybe we'll talk about sometime. It's fascinating in America. I'm watching to see what that looks like for. I think it'll probably manifest in the first turning that comes up after hopefully we survive the crisis. The Catholics are on the rise.
Well, I certainly believe, whether it's Catholicism or something else, I certainly believe that there is no way any of this gets resolved and we move into we're first turning without a return of morality of some sort.
Yeah.
One of the themes of the turnings, in my opinion, is, again, looking at the guy who came home in 1947 or 46 from World War II, that guy had a strong sense of morality and duty and things like that. And now we're at the opposite end of the spectrum on that. And that has to be addressed somehow. It won't be fun. And what the morality is, the standard for morality is going to be, decent chance I won't like it, but if it's Catholicism, okay, fine, I can get on board with that, I guess. But some kind of morality has to be back and be a meaningful part of the decision-making criteria. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of this.
Yep. Nope. I think it's true.
All right. Well, as Dave said in the beginning, if there's anything we said, especially right or wrong, we'd love to hear your input. We're talking to people in future generations, like 75 years in the future, trying to explain to them what it's like to live in this chaotic time as they look back and wonder what the hell is wrong with us. You can give us your feedback at unsilentpodcast.com, or Rumble has a great comment section. Until next week, this is Dave and Brian signing off.
See you next week.
Do you want to be unsilent? Make your voice heard on our social media channels and share where you think we got it right or wrong. Go to unsilentpodcast.com for social links so you can join the discussion.